Parents, the following program is intended for people over the age of 13. If your kids are younger than that, please use the YouTube Kids app.
Welcome to Scary Stories, the channel that tells you scary stories.
Peter Bernard's Scary Stories for Adults.
Welcome to Scary Stories NYC. I'm your old pal Bigfoot. What is Dogman? We get so many stories about Dogman sent into us by people claiming to have encountered him, or it, in person, yet still, it would be difficult if not impossible for us to tell you what Dogman even is. Is it a predatory animal living in the remote woods of the North American continent? Is it a shape-shifting Native American shaman? Are the reports due to sightings of werewolves? Human beings afflicted with lycanthropy? Are Dogman sightings a mix of hoaxes and misunderstood sightings of bears and other large land animals? Are they tulpas, living beings created by intense imagination? Are they archetypal figures existing deep within the human subconscious, projected outward at key moments in our lives? Are they creatures from another reality coming here through portals or vortex doorways, located in places like the Skinwalker Ranch? I think you begin to see what I'm saying when I say I don't know what Dogman is. Maybe he, she, or it is some combination of all of the above. Or maybe it's something that nobody has thought of before. No human, I mean. What we've got coming up next are adaptations of emails we received from individuals who have definite opinions about what Dogman is, or at least what the Dogman they claimed to have witnessed was. First up, here's something sent to us by someone who has never seen our show. One of our viewers wrote to him asking him to write me, explaining his personal Dogman experience and presenting his theory on Dogman for all of us. The title he gave to his collection of ideas is Dogman is a race of humans reverted to savagery. Dogman is a race of humans reverted to savagery. Dear Scary Stories NYC, our mutual acquaintance, name deleted, asked me to write to you concerning my theories about the Dogman. I'm giving you permission to either reprint or adapt the following on two conditions. 1, that you leave my name out of the show, and 2, that you not change any of the key facts or descriptions of my encounter. I want to make it clear that I do not have any opinion at all about the Beast of Bray Road type of Dogman. If they have a dog body and walk on their hind legs holding their paws together before them, that is not what I saw, and I cannot speak to those sightings. I am certain that is something other than what I encountered. The type of Dogman I can speak to is what has traditionally been referred to as cynocephalic people. Going back at least as far as the Egyptians, there have been stories of human tribes referred to as dog-headed, as in the dog-headed Hungarian tribe described in the ancient Greek legends of Jason and the Argonauts. There have been accounts of tribes in India described as dog-mouthed, who lived separately from normal people. As late as the 1300s, the Mid-Eastern traveler and scholar Ibn Battuta wrote that he personally encountered a tribe on an island between India and Sumatra that had what he called dog mouths. I don't know if that means they had normal human ears or not, but he tells us that only the males of the tribe looked like dogs. The women were, quote, of exceptional beauty, unquote. Sometimes when people discuss this subject with me, they'll mention Saint Christopher who is often depicted as a dogman or werewolf, a dog-headed man dressed in human-style clothing. This depiction of him was actually the result of a sort of game of telephone. One writer wrote that St. Christopher was a Canaanite from the land of Canaan. It was mistranslated that St. Christopher was a canine, and thus the legend began. It's even possible that some other reported dog-headed species were the results of mistranslations as well, but I doubt all of them could be, especially not after what happened to me. I was camping in the Allegheny National Forest with a friend we can call George. The trip was uneventful until our last night, when we were visited by not one, but an entire pack of dogmen, and they were not what you might expect them to be. You see, in our sighting, we, or at least I, got a far more up-close and personal look at one of these creatures than normal. My story begins, as so many dogman stories do, when I realized I had to relieve myself in the middle of the night. I got out of my tent and wandered over to the edge of the forest to find a tree to go behind and do my business. As I was wrapping up the sordid affair and getting ready to walk back to my tent, I noticed eye shine in the dark of the woods looking at me. I didn't know what kind of animal it was that gave that kind of eye shine. It was yellowy or almost golden, I guess you would say. Out of my peripheral vision, I kept thinking I was seeing more sets of eyes. But when I would look directly in those areas, I would no longer notice them there. I got the impression that it was a bunch of animals out there in the forest, and I prayed it was deer or something else that would be harmless to me and my camping buddy George. As I turned away from the eye shine to go, I almost walked directly into a man, just about my height, who appeared to be wearing a dog head as a mask. I was horrified. I felt I'd walked into some kind of Deliverance sequel or maybe Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The guy was literally a foot away from me, and I swear he barked. But the thing is, when he did that, he really barked at me. I mean, that dog head mask wasn't a mask. It was a real dog head. Now, a lot of the rest of this description is not going to sync up with a number of other accounts of Dogman, but maybe others haven't been seeing the things as closely as I saw this one. Now, hold onto your chairs, because as real as that dog head was, that's how fake the chest hair was. What I mean to say is the creature was covered in hair all over, longer and thicker than an average man, but it was not as thick as an average dog, on the other hand. The thing had wrapped itself in what looked to be the skin or pelt of some kind of wild animal. It was held in place by being tied by some kind of string or twine-like material. I don't really want to think too much about what it might have been made out of, but this dog-headed man was wearing an animal pelt with a long tail on the back of the costume. Not so long as to drag on the ground, but its pelt had a tail. Two skinny and hairy legs poked out of the bottom of the animal skin, and the overall effect was that of a dog-headed caveman. I screamed, literally moved the creature out of my way, and ran back to my tent. George had been awakened either by my screaming or the barking or something, and he called to me in my tent, asking me what was going on. I told him that a tribe of cavemen with dog heads was watching us from the forest, and he asked if I had eaten any of the local mushrooms. He joked around about it for a while, but it wasn't funny to me. And when those dogmen raided our campsite, it wasn't so funny anymore to him either. They stomped around and poked at our tents. They seemed interested in our fire pit, then began doing this odd thing. I guess it was a game or a dare or a challenge to each other. They would run up, whack one of our tents, then run away. It was very disconcerting, and I kept telling myself that they would grow bored and move on, but it lasted for over an hour. Once they finally did seem to get bored and move on, we both stayed awake anyhow. The longer it was quiet, the more certain we became that They were about to launch a big surprise attack on us. By the time the sun came up, we were both pretty rattled and wrecked. That was not a fun trip home. We both had been made to feel extremely vulnerable, and we both felt like we had gotten our butts kicked. Now, this tribe may have been primitive, but they were at least partly human beings. This coincides with all the ancient legends. If cynocephalic or dog-headed people were not real, why would they have been written about in so many different cultures? And then, why did people stop writing about them? Where did they go? I proposed the idea that the dog-headed people went underground. They removed themselves from society and regressed back into the cave people they had evolved out of. Now, they continue to exist, mere miles in some cases from major modern cities, and yet not knowing or understanding anything of our culture. It seems definite to me. Dogman is most likely the remnant tribes of cynocephaly, living in 21st century United States in the last few remaining wild places. Due to abundant food in our national parks, their numbers are growing. After all, why else would Dogman sightings have continued to spike in recent years? We've got 2 more Dogman stories for you, so don't go anywhere. Let's get to the second story right now. Dogman is a government science experiment gone wrong. Dear Scary Stories NYC, I once saw a dogman through binoculars for about 30 seconds on my land in Kentucky. I don't want to say exactly where, but we are pretty far east and not too far from West Virginia. It's tree-covered and hilly in these parts. It looks like the kind of place you would expect to see Bigfoot or Dogman, and that's why when people see them here, they accept them as natural animals. One thing that the average guy on the street doesn't know, however, is that the land I'm referring to happens to be located directly over a very secret military base. At least, that's the rumor. The dogman that I saw was not a normal animal. It seemed like a mutation or some sort of Frankenstein monster of a creature. What I mean is, it almost seemed spliced together. I was with 2 buddies at my home, and my friend said he had seen this thing 2 or 3 times before on his property. He called it a government experiment that escaped, so maybe that colored our thinking about it. I have a hard time seeing it as anything else, though. This dogman, or whatever it was, walked on its hind legs, but it did so with great difficulty. Also, this was dusk, but its eyes appeared completely white. I got the impression that it was blind and possibly injured in some fashion, while we took turns peering through the binoculars at it. Then, at one point when I was looking through the lens at it, the creature turned suddenly in my direction as though it could see me. As you can imagine, this was very surprising, and I almost dropped the binoculars. My friends were hooting and making sounds as though they had just witnessed something very impressive, but I could no longer make out the position of the dogman. According to the 2 of them, that dogman, once it looked in our direction, stopped looking sick and rose to a really tall height, much taller than they thought it could get. 1 second later, it had bolted out of there, leaving a puff of dusty smoke in its wake. They were so excited, shouting at me in amazement, that the thing moved faster than the Tasmanian devil from TV cartoons. There isn't anything natural that pretends to be slow-moving and injured, then speeds out of a location faster than any known animal. This has to be the result of some government experimentation. We know that governments in the past have actually tried to create hybrid soldiers, only part human, but part something else as well. Maybe this was a failed experiment, or maybe this experiment succeeded so well that the creature was not containable, and it escaped. Maybe more and more of these government-bred half-human, half-canine super soldiers are escaping from the labs and underground containment facilities they are created and stored in. After all, why else would sightings of Dogman have spiked so much in more recent years. You've now heard two theories about what Dogman might be. Do you think either argument has merit? Please tell us your thoughts in the comments section. Up next is our third and final Dogman story. See if the ideas in this one are closer to your way of thinking, as it starts right now. Dogman is a natural animal easily explained. Dear Scary Stories NYC, I saw a dogman with my own eyes, and I'm going to tell you about it. What I saw was not a figment of my imagination. It was not a ghost. It was not a projection, and it was not a person in a costume. It was something that occupied physical space and certainly appeared to be a living, breathing creature. I was in the Hudson Highlands, the beautiful state park in upstate New York, just wandering around and enjoying the views of the mountains and the Hudson River. So much of the land up there is steeped in legend and lore. There are tales of the fairy folk living in those mountains, and there are modern tales of UFOs and strange lights in the night sky. Washington Irving's famous tales of Rip Van Winkle and the Headless Horseman, both were set along the Hudson River, which I see as a sort of engine for the paranormal. I think strange things happen there now because they always have and they always will. I climbed up onto a rocky outcropping overlooking a valley and was quite blown away by the breathtaking view. And then I witnessed something even more breathtaking. I saw a dog-headed wild man climb up over the edge of that ridge like he had climbed up that way 1,000,000 times before. It was like I had stepped back in deep time, somewhere before human culture had reached such dominance. I could physically see it there, in front of me, exerting itself to climb over the edge of the cliff. It was not glowing or floating above the ground like a vision or angel or space alien. It was an apparently animal life form struggling to survive, and I happened to now be in his way. I didn't think I could outrun him, and I didn't think I could befriend him. I decided my main priority should be to not appear to challenge him. I focused my eyes downward, making sure not to meet his eyes. I tried to watch his body language and so forth through my peripheral vision, but I felt strongly that this was my best bet for surviving the encounter: to stay in place, allow him to establish his dominance, then hope to shrink away from the scene before he threw me off the cliff that he had just climbed up. In other words, I treated him the way I would have treated any other hostile stray dog or wild canine. It growled and snarled and came a bit closer to me, smelling the air around me. It made this constant low-level sound of anger that caused my stomach and the bottoms of my feet to tickle. It was a very upsetting feeling, very unnerving, and I wanted to scream out for help and run away. I stood my ground instead, though, and all at once, the creature ran directly toward me. I instinctively dove out of the way, but I don't think he was actually aiming for me. I think he just wanted to spook me and scare me, but that he only meant to run close to me. That alone was almost enough to make me pass out, believe me. My only thought after he ran off was that I wanted to get off his turf and on my way home as quickly as I could. People ask me to describe the creature I saw in detail, and I always preface my description with the reminder that I only viewed the animal directly for a second or two before realizing I'd better stop making eye contact. It was taller than I was, but I can't really give an estimate. Over 6 feet. It had what I would describe as a head like a very dark German shepherd. It had that kind of a dog snout. The eyes had a mysterious quality to them that I cannot explain, since I didn't look into them long enough to really remember why I was so taken with their strangeness. They were dark animal eyes, though, like a dog's eyes, not glowing or anything like that. Although this was during the daytime, not at night. I don't recall the ears, but they were dog ears of some kind. It had a dog head, and it had a body that mixed qualities of both. It had an upper torso probably more human than canine, but the hind legs which it walked on were bent like those of a fawn or a minotaur. It was entirely covered in fur, the way a dog might be, and the fur was a deep black like that of a chimpanzee. I don't recall if it had hands or front paws, and I'm glad I don't, because I'm still traumatized by the things that I did see. The world is not as safe as TV makes it seem, and I almost learned this lesson the hard way, thanks to Dogman. But I didn't, and since I survived, I've become a bit obsessed about the Dogman. What exactly is it, and what did I see? As humans have advanced into the former wilderness, extending their suburbs and outskirts further and further out, most predators have receded back away from human beings and have shrunk in numbers. Not so the canines. Coyotes now regularly roam rich suburbs, dining on the expensive cuisine of local purebred family pets. Sometimes they make it all the way down into lower Manhattan before being captured and returned to the wild. Canine species are equally at home hunting solo or in packs. They are perfectly willing to roam great distances like hairy little Vikings, just to see if there's something good to eat a bit further on. And one other reason that canines advance as wilderness recedes is that canines have no fear of humans. I hear a bunch of you objecting to the idea of canines not fearing humans. After all, you don't see wolves wandering deep into human settlements as often as you see coyotes do it. Some canine species do prefer to keep their distance from our kind. But are you sure that means they fear us? Maybe it just means they have no use for us. Dogman has to be a predatory species that has existed in America all along, but become more noticeable as we cut down and move into its hunting grounds. Why else would sightings have spiked so much in more recent years?
Do you have a scary story you want us to read on the show? Just call our voicemail hotline, 804-LIST-SCARY. That's 804-537-2279. And now for something completely scary.
Hey, it's me, Henry Lee Dogman, here to thank those of you who support all of us here at Scary Stories NYC. It really helps us if you click like, and if you forward our videos or leave cool comments. If you can, it helps us even more when you let us share our 25-episode and growing collection of uncensored, scary Dogman stories with you by becoming a paid subscriber at peterbernard.com. That's right. Join our monthly club and get 25 stories right off the bat, each of them wilder than what we're allowed to tell you on this channel. Then, each Sunday, get another new scary story, usually a Dogman story, but always uncensored and secret, available nowhere else on the planet. Please consider joining us today at peterbernard.com and keep the scary stories coming. Thanks, everyone.
If you enjoyed this, please click like or consider subscribing. Remember to click the bell icon or you won't get notifications. If you want to listen to Bigfoot's secret uncensored story each Sunday, just go to peterbernard.com and become a paid subscriber. See you tomorrow. Same dog time, same dog channel.
Come back for more scary stories.